Hi, so this is Chris Borgmeyer from Portland State University, one of the creators of the basic FBA to BSP training. And this video is going to be a short standalone video that's going to be just a place you can go to if you want kind of a refresher on how to use the Excel data tracking template that we've provided in Module 7 for data entry. So I'm going to transition now to the Excel sheet itself. Okay, so you can download the Excel data tracking template from the website under Module 7 in both the online and the live training sites. So the first page you're going to see, well, it kind of depends how the template opens for you, but probably the first thing you want to know is down at the bottom here. If you can see the lower boundary here with the directions with example Mary Jo. So the tab currently is open to that tab. It's highlighted there. You can see that that's the one in use. But I can switch between the different tabs here on the bottom. And so the next four tabs are really just for using, setting up for individual students as you go. But the first tab, we're going to start there with the directions with the example of Mary Jo. And so you can see how it's laid out here. So the first column here is the date column, and so you can enter the dates to correspond with the sessions for the data that you're entering. And so I'm going to encourage you only to enter dates of school days. And so don't enter weekends, keep holidays out of there. The dates don't actually matter in terms of the graphing. The way the graphing is set up, it's all linked to the session number. So you can see the session numbers are listed down at the bottom of the graph. So the dates don't really matter except for your own reference to be able to link when the session occurred with the date. It is still, I mean, because the graphing is not linked, the year actually isn't as important, but it's still, of course, nice to have accurate date information. So the next thing we're going to look at is the columns here in the yellow. So the yellow fields are the student outcome data. And so you're only going to enter data in column C and D here that I've just highlighted. So the points earned and the points possible columns are the ones you're going to enter your data in. And so depending on how you set up your point card, the points possible may change per day, and it is possible that the student will only be in a class for half the day. So they might only have half the points available to them one day. Like you can see here on this the fourth session here, you can see the student was only there for 8 possible points, it looks like, in class. So they just modified the daily points there. And then the E column here is that is all set up with formulas that calculate the percentage from column C and D. And so 14 out of 16 possible points is 87.5%. And so you don't really want to mess with this column because you're going to be messing up the formulas. So don't enter things into this column. The one exception is you may want to delete the cell in this column to keep your graph cleaner on days that the student is absent. And so we'll come back and talk more about that. But it just keeps the graph from being a little bit distracting when it goes down to 0 when it may not be an accurate representation of what's going on. So we'll show you that again later. So the next thing is your implementation fidelity data. And so in the blue column here, that's purely the implementation fidelity data where you want to enter that. And so again, you can see points earned, points possible. And so these are the numbers that you'll enter daily corresponding with the session number and the date. And then again, the column here, the H column, is it's all formulas, and so this will calculate a percentage based on your points earned and points possible. So if data looks funny here, like it's bigger than 1, which would be bigger than 100%, you probably want to go and look at the percentages that or the numbers that you've entered in here. Then the last column in the green here is for any notes that you think are pertinent to the day. So you can see if a student's absent, we might demonstrate that they're absent. If there's an intervention change, we can write that in there. You know, if the student came late, something just was a little bit off that day, maybe you want to make notes about that. And so you can put all that information in the notes box here. So as you enter numbers into the student outcome data and the implementation fidelity data, it should automatically graph the percentages from the formula columns, E and H, into the graph over here with the corresponding session number. And so that graphing should happen automatically. So you're not going to be worrying about the data points on the graph. Those will come directly from these columns E and H. But there are a number of things that you can do within this graphing template to personalize it to the data for your student. And so you'll see that where the name is here and the graph title, that's just a text box. And so you can click on that, and I can write. Once that's clicked, I can write in there, and I can delete in there. So I can change it to say anything that I want it to say. And so we've just written in Mary Jo BSP data, and then the dates. Of course, you want the dates to correspond to the first 20 sessions here. So you can see session 1 is January 29th of 2013, and the 20th session here from the session column. So that graphs are set up to present 20 dates. We didn't want it to get too congested or kind of too stretched out in there. So so the first graph goes to the 20th period session, and so you can see the corresponding date there is March 4th of 2013. So we can change that number there. The goals, so you can see again this goal, where the goal is written in text, is just a text box. So again, I can change the percentage of goal there to 80% if I want to change it to 80%, and then I can just drag the goal line here and say that the goal was 70% for half the sessions. I could say, okay, we were at 70% until session 10, and now I'm gonna copy. I'm just going to highlight that goal line, copy it, and paste it, and it usually shows up in the upper right hand corner of the graph if that's where it's highlighted. So you can see I've grabbed it here. I'm going to pull it down there, and I'm going to just, since we changed the goal after the 10th session, I'll bump that that goal line up to 80% there. And so there we've got the goal as it's been changed in the intervention. The next thing, you can see that for each of the graphs there's an intervention change line, this purple line, and then there's an intervention change box, and those are usually found on the right side of the graph. And so you can just drag the purple line from the right side of the graph. Let's see if I scroll down here, you can see this is kind of what the blank graphs look like. And so I could just grab it from the left side and drag it over there as needed. And same thing with this absent box down here, I can drag that over and put it where I want it. So so on our graph here, you can see that I dragged it. You can see it corresponds with looks like session number 7 here is where the intervention change occurs. And so you can see the intervention change line. I probably want to put that like right after session 7, kind of between session 7 and 8, to designate that that's when the intervention change happened. So I could just keep intervention change here. I don't have to put more details necessarily here, because we can go over here and look at the details in the notes box around what was the intervention change. But again, if you want to put more information in this text box, you could probably do that. And then if you want to have a second intervention change, you can just again grab the text, the line, copy it, and I'm just pasting it, and another one shows up here, and I can just place that where I need it. I can do the same thing with the box. I get it, I copy it, I'll paste it, it shows up in this corner here, and I'll drag it down. And so similarly with the absent, it's just a dragging text box. So see, the student was absent here on the session 17, so I'm going to put one there. If I need another one, I'll just copy it and paste it. It again shows up here in the corner, and I can drag it down to wherever I need to place that. I'm just going to set it over here for now. So that is kind of the basics. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, and then you can see down here for sessions 21. So you can see this line here starting with session 21. So the data from 21 to, the session 21 through 30 is now moved on to the second graph. And so again, so it doesn't get too congested. And so the graphs are set up for up to 60 data points. And if you get beyond 60 data points, well, good for you. That's an amazing data collection effort. Really appreciate that, especially if the kids need that ongoing data collection. You may want to, it's probably maybe your best bet is just to start another tab for the same student going on to the next 20 data points. That's probably the easiest thing to do rather than trying to duplicate the effort to make this, make another graph there on the same template. All right, so what I'm going to do now is that we're going to go over to the case number 1, and we're going to kind of set this up according to Shane and the sample case of Shane that we've sort of put together as a case example using the basic FBA to BSP documents. And so first thing I could do is you can always change the name of these tabs down here. And so you see how I switched from the directions over to the case number 1. So I can always, if I right click on that tab, I'm using a PC, so it may be slightly different with a Mac, but I can rename this. And so it's highlighted now, and I could put Shane's name in there, and so that would designate that this is where Shane's data is going to go. And so now this is Shane. Now just kind of some general setup things. What I might do is I might go over here and change the student name, and I could do this for, you know, all 3 of these cases, or all 3 of the graphs right now, or I could just start with the first one. Maybe I want to get rid of these little marks here on the side. And the dates, it looks like we're planning to implement with Shane starting on November 17th. So I'm just going to put that start date in there because we're not sure, you know, what's going to happen. Based on our evaluation planning data and our initial point card, which in the behavior support planning process is I'm going to take us over to those forms right now. And so we set up these point cards for Shane, and here you can see we have the first day's data. And so this data is what we're going to use to actually complete the daily data for Shane. And so each day one of these is going to come in. And so the first thing I'm going to do is with this data template, we tried to keep it pretty simple and pretty streamlined. So at this point, you really just have the total points that you're going to enter. So you can see this is the student outcome points, 18 out of 24. And then if we look down at, or we look on the back side of the card and we flip it over, the total implementation fidelity score is 6 out of 6. And so those are the 2 numbers that we're going to transfer into the data template. So now I'll transition back to the data tracking template. All right, so for Shane here, so the first day, remembering what the point card was, so the date was 11/17 of 2015. So that's our session 1. And so remember, Shane earned 18 out of the 24 possible points. So I'll write that in the student outcome box, and you can see it's 75%, and it graphs that right there for Shane. And the points earned for implementation fidelity was 6 out of 6 for 100%. And nothing really, there were no notes to notice on this first day of implementation. So there we are. We've got our first 2 data points. And so as the days go by, you know, we can just continue to enter the data for Shane. And so 21 out of 24, 6 out of 6. Say the next day we got 17 out of 24, and we got 6 out of 6. So, oops, I forgot to put the date in there. Okay, so, and that isn't right. We hit the weekend, so it's actually 11/21/15. Okay, so Monday's data, 17 out of 24 after the weekend, holding at 70%, so it's all right, not great. I mean, not perfect. And actually now I noticed that my goal line on this form is at 70%, and we actually set the goal for 80%. So I'm going to drag that up there, and I'm going to change this text box here to read 80%, and it looks like we're on our way with data entry. So I will continue, you know, as the data cards come in. So we get our next one, November 22nd, 2015, and Shane earned 23 out of 24. Good job today, Shane. And 5 out of 6 on the implementation fidelity, so not bad, Mr. T with implementation. And so again, we want to enter this data with Shane each day as he's bringing the point cards in, rather than we wouldn't prefer to wait till the end of the week and do it, although that's what I'm showing you kind of now is entering the data all at once, but that's just for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because I think you probably got the idea here of data entry. So I'm going to jump ahead and we'll go on to kind of the next portion of training here. Okay, so now let's say we've been entering data now for about 10 school days. And so you can see as we look through the school days here, it's a little bit over 2 weeks because it looks like we actually hit Thanksgiving break here. And so we noted here that return from Thanksgiving break. And point-wise, you can see that corresponded a little bit with a dip in scores here down to 58%. And you can see that on the graph. It also corresponded with a dip in fidelity. And so you know, it wasn't noted here, but at this point in time, the behavior specialist met with Mr. T to address implementation fidelity. So we could put that in there. And after we had that meeting, implementation fidelity went back up and we were on our way, and Shane again started showing some pretty good progress, which takes us to today. And so if you remember, for Shane, we were going to get together on December 2nd, and we're going to hold our BSP review meeting to kind of bring the team back together and see how things are going. And so we can note that. And so we're going to look at this data. Now, one thing is, let's just say at the meeting, I don't want to end on this big dart down to 0 here. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go into column F here, and I'm going to go to the next data point and see where that formula is. I'm going to delete that. And if you go to I, I'm going to do the same thing over here. And so watch, it just takes away that line all the way down. So it just looks cleaner in terms of being able to understand data, and we're not sort of distracted by that big dart down. So I might have the data look like that for the meeting as I present it to the staff. Now, say tomorrow we're going to start collecting data again, and so I want to actually put that formula back in. All I have to do is I can highlight any one of these boxes with the formula in it, and I'll just copy that box, and I'm going to put it in that box. I delete it and paste it back in there, and now that formula is right back in there, and we're ready to go. And see it puts the line back in there as a connected line because we put that formula back in there. So now we hold our meeting. And so let's just take a look at what decisions were made at this meeting. So I'm going to transfer over to our behavior support planning review meeting form. Okay, so here you can see we had reviewed the data from our graph in the meeting, and we talked about implementation fidelity and student outcomes. And these are the decisions down here that we decided to make. And so the tasks were, one of the implementation fidelity tasks that didn't happen was we didn't get Shane started in a math group, and we didn't do an assessment of his math skills. And so Mrs. R is going to get right on that next week because that is one thing we didn't do. But we decided that we're going to talk with Shane about changing the incentive and start maybe fading him back from a daily incentive to a weekly incentive. And so so that's a relatively big shift as we start thinking about fading. So so it might be important to watch how Shane's data works after we change the incentive for him. And then the other piece, we're just going to do a little bit of a I'm going to revisit with Mr. T that we need to emphasize letting Shane refuse politely, and if he does that, we need to let him actually refuse politely and not go back to him. So those are the things we're going to look at, and you can see that we're going to get together formally as a team again on December 17th to review this data again and see how he's doing with fading back to incentives just once a week. All right, so we're going to go back to the graph now. All right, so for Shane now, we held our BSP review meeting, and we made a little bit of an intervention change. So we're going to intervention change fading incentive to 1 per week. And so I'm going to write that in the notes, and now I'm going to go, and you can see the slider here on the bottom right. So I can slide on over here so I can see that intervention change line, and I'm going to drag this over right over here in between our last two dates, because we started fitting that intervention. And then I'm going to drag this one over. Whoops, I got the whole thing. So if I make a big mistake like that, I'm just going to, on my PC, I hit Control Z or undo, and it's going to put it right back there for me. So now I'm going to drag that intervention change box over there. And now we continue on with, so sliding back over here, we'll continue on with data entry, see how things go for our student here. So on December 5th, Shane got 20 out of 24 points, and fidelity was 5 out of 6, so that looks pretty good. Couple more data points here. So I'm going to give you a break as I enter a couple more data points, and then we'll come back to kind of wrap this up. Okay, so now we've been cruising along. We got a couple more data points entered, and you can see the graph here. It's showing that he seems to be doing all right after the change in incentives. Now we get along to December 8th, and it turns out he's absent that day. So we're going to pull this little absent box over, and so December 8th would have been the 18th data point here. And so I'm going to grab that absent box and drag that over here up above the I'm sorry, it's the 14th day that he's absent, so I'm going to put that right there above that 14th. And then because he's absent that day, I don't want that line, those lines going all the way back down to 0, so that's where I'm going to delete that formula box. So in the formula, I'll delete that and watch that line just disappear for the blue one, and I'm going to do the same thing for the implementation fidelity, and then it's going to change, and so there's a break in the data points. And now the next day comes back, it's December 9th, and on December 9th he gets 16 out of 24 points, and the implementation fidelity is 5 out of 6. And so here you can see now the line starts up again, and we can keep rolling. So we got, okay, that takes us to the weekend. Now on Monday, comes back 21 out of 24, and 5 out of 6 points. And the last day, today's data, 23 out of 24, great day, and 6 out of 6, so we're cruising. And one thing I forgot is when he was absent up here, I also could put absent in the notes box to note that he was absent that day, so we got it there, and we've got it over here. So that's the data entry. And so we'll just say we cruised ahead, and I don't know, we'll say that this just happens to correspond with 12/18 now, that is the 21st session. So you can just see on 12/18 here, if you got 20 out of 24, you can see it's going to start that new graph, and it just picks up right where we left off. So I can go up here and change Shane's, put Shane's name in here and the dates and so on. So hopefully that is helpful and informative. And then if you have another student that you're going to be working with, we can just set up a second data sheet for that student. Oh, and it looks like somehow I entered data into the student number 2 template rather than Shane template, and so my Shane one here is blank. So I'm actually going to rename this one to Shane. Oh, I already took that one, so let's go Shane 2. And here I'll change this one back to number 1 student name. And actually, if I want to, I can just drag this tab over to the left, and that'll put, oh, I dragged it a little too far, but you can just drag these so you can order them how you want them. If there's a case that, started off really heavy, but you've been able to fade, and now there's another case that you're getting to more often, so you can always move these around sort of any order you want to after you name them. So, and if you feel like the directions, you got enough of those, you can move that over here because you feel like you've mastered this. So that's our training for the Excel data tracking template. Hopefully you find that helpful, and you can come back to this as a resource whenever you've got a question about how to do some of the data entry pieces. So thank you, and good luck with your data collection.